go. Podcasting time. Coming to you from the fast-moving consumables locker at PowerWorks Garage. Yeah. We spare no expense for this podcast.
Oh, no, I mean, this is what, like, there must be 200 dirhams worth of gypsum board.
Great to have everyone around. I don't know how you're listening to us, but I know you're listening to us because you're listening. So great to have you here. And we got a lot to talk about today. I mean, we got stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I sent you something late last night about the solar-powered car built in the UAE, in Sharjah.
I was reading this, and I was impressed.
Yeah.
I was absolutely... So what I was impressed with, amongst other things, and if you haven't seen this is so it's not 100... So it's solar-powered, but it's an electric car.
Yeah.
So first of all, it's an electric car that can get an additional 70 kilometers via solar power charging, which I think is pretty cool because when you think about it,
Where we live,
everything, if you're in the city and you're driving, everything's a 20-kilometer away, and it's sunny pretty much all year round. So you're going to have a pretty sleek-looking vehicle that you're not going to be going to the petrol pumps very often, if ever.
But it's going to be mad money to repair when you have an accident.
Well, hold on, it's not a hybrid, so you'll never be going to the petrol pumps. Well, okay, so here's exactly. So let's just run through this cool car just for a second because it is cool and
so they called it the Lightyear O.
Yes. No, here's the first thing. Designed in Sharjah through their science and technology hub, which is really cool. But it's not being built in the UAE. So that's the first thing. It is coming to us from the Netherlands is where it's being manufactured. Designed here, put together in the Lightyear O being put together in the Netherlands. And before you want to get your name all onto the list and say, hey, I need this vehicle, just keep in mind the first iteration that they've got out comes in at a whopping 900,000 dirhams.
Yeah, $250,000 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But you know what? If you can do 70 kilometers just on your daily solar charging from it being outside.
Yeah.
Do many people do that?
No, I don't.
And it says with an average annual yield of 11,000 kilometers.
Yeah.
Just to work and back.
Yeah. I'm thinking
for free.
For free. For free.
Like,
you don't have to plug it in. Just
it's still kind of a little bit of a joke for some people, but not for a lot.
Yeah.
Where people are going electric and electricity is now. It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everyone's going electric cars. Now all of a sudden there's an energy crisis. Yeah. That's strange. That's convenient. Everyone needs to charge their electric cars. Oh, and all of a sudden electricity is 5 times more expensive than it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Like anyone that into conspiracy theories, hit me up. But this, in theory, will do 625 kilometers on a full charge.
Yep.
And then an extra 70 in an average day of being in the sun.
Yeah. The other thing is it looks cool. Like it does
actually. It's really sleek, isn't it?
I know it's called.
Can't see any panel gaps or anything. No. It's really, really smart.
It's made in the Netherlands, put together in the Netherlands, which I thought was kind of interesting too, because when I think of car assembly manufacturing, I don't think of the Netherlands.
Some weird cars come out of Holland, though.
Yeah. Well,
Is it the Fiskars that were out of Holland?
Okay. There we go. So it makes sense. Sharjah Research Technology and Innovation Park. Hussein Mohammed Al Mahudi is who's talking about this, and again, Sharjah doing some cool stuff.
And they're going to partner up with the universities to do the testing and the R&D on it, which is really cool. Yeah. And the 500 units that they initially said they would make have sold out.
Yeah, 160 kilometer top speed.
Look, I mean,
who goes 160 kilometers? I mean, I know there's people going, James, I don't think I get up above 120 in my vehicle. I'm not even sure it goes faster than 120.
This just gives you it's a limited run cars, and as with all limited run cars, it's going to be expensive to fix when it breaks. But the cosmetic side of it, so the body panels and stuff like that, not only are they obviously part of the physical structure of the car, but they are forming part of the solar charging system.
Yeah, like down the roof, down the hood,
Yeah.
front and back. I mean,
So
it
you
is
end up
one.
getting rear-ended or having front end. You've got a massive, massive problem.
That's it. You're done for.
Yeah.
Imagine what it's going to
So
cost to replace these.
it's
Because
just
they're all
gonna be-
integral.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those, isn't it? Hopefully it's an exercise in, this is an idea, let's make it. And the next time it becomes a lot more cost effective and a lot cheaper for people to buy.
So part 2, 2024, 2025, they're saying they're going to be coming out with the next edition, the more affordable range, and it's going to be the Lightyear 2, $30,000 to $35,000 price
I remember
range.
someone else saying about a $35,000 EV, and that never happened, did it, Mr. Musk?
So
About 50,000, aren't they?
yeah, so that's what they're saying. They're hoping. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. More affordable is always good.
You know, it's the same old story, right? And this is exactly what Mr. Musk did. And hats off to Mr. Musk because he pushed everyone. Now you got solar cars coming out. We got solar power is a big issue.
Yeah.
We're going to have the likes of Volkswagen and the likes of General Motors and the likes of Mercedes and the likes of BMW and the likes of Mr. Musk saying, you know what, I got to get on the solar power.
Cars with solar panels is not a new thing. I've told this story before. In the 90s, I was like 5 years old, and I remember seeing a Honda that it was blue, and it looked like nothing I'd ever seen before, and it was just covered in solar panels.
Yeah.
And it was like, this is the future of cars. And I remember my granddad being amazed by it and showing me it. Nothing ever came of it, but solar panels are now quite cheap.
Well, that was the problem with 20 years ago. Solar panels were big, bulky. They weren't very effective. Now they've gotten thinner. The photo cells have gotten so thin, and they're affordable.
Yeah,
and you can do a whole bunch with them. So I think it's gonna be cool. I'm really interested in this.
Well, they're affordable for the time being.
You're such a cynic. This is not the PowerWorks podcast. It's the Cynic podcast.
Well, ground down. No, there's a lot of the good thing about that is it's a university project now.
Yeah.
To improve on it.
Well,
there's nothing wrong with that. And for me, it gets the young people back interested in cars again.
This is it. And I think this is the key thing. It's how do we get this generation that's behind us who aren't interested in cars anymore because, hey, I can't afford one. Hey, I can't afford rent. They're thinking rent. Forget a car. I can't afford an apartment. And now this is, hold on, there's actually a career here. I want to go into sciences. Well, what am I going to do in sciences? Hey, I want to go into automotive engineering. I want to go into photocell engineering. I want to go. We're seeing all these doors open up that are inviting people. And it's realistic that you could do this. And it's almost realistic that you could do this and you could prototype and rapid prototype in your garage. You no longer need to be necessarily have this giant lab thing. So it makes it more accessible for more schools.
Building a motor is something I did at 7-8 years old at school.
Yeah.
So building an engine and building a motor, internal combustion engine and building an electronic motor are two different, completely different things. Anyone can build a motor.
Yeah.
And, if it gets young people back interested in cars again, and there's the attitude, obviously, like you say, of, I can't afford a car, I can't run a car. But also there's the fact that people have maybe too much of a negative opinion, and they've been wrongly guided in the way of, well, I've got to save the planet, so I can only have one kid and maybe no kids, and I definitely can't have a car.
Yeah.
So that's the sort of thing that might change with this sort of. And we saw it was the French one that was like an IKEA flat pack car that you could effectively buy
the Gazelle,
and put together.
Gazelle.
That's right, and that was such a cool idea.
I'm still waiting for that to be rolled out here. I just there's a huge French community here. I'm thinking, why wouldn't they bring one out here, set one up at the Lycée Georges Pompidou, and
say that twice.
Even they don't say it; they just say LGP. It's like, and they say it so fast. It's like, what?
Bless you.
But set up it's 4 containers. Set up the 4 containers. Start manufacturing. Get the high school kids playing with it. And obviously you have the engineers and you have the assembly guys, but you get some high school kids in there playing around too. And here we go. You got excitement.
Yeah, it's just like grown up Lego.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And I think that's all the educationists listening, that's the problem. People are saying, oh, why is it not working? Why are kids not engaged? It's because they don't see any future in what they're learning. Because they don't see how the math applies to, hey, I've got to be thinking about the amount of materials, or I've got to be thinking about the distances and where I'm cutting, and I've got to be thinking about width. And I've got to be, they just don't see it. Why do I need to know this?
Yeah, well, I mean, you think back to science at school and doing equations to work out force and acceleration and electronic resistance and things like that. Yeah. All the sort of stuff that at school you think, why?
Well, and you
my
know
dad
why?
will wire the plug for me. And,
exactly.
But we use the electronic equations all the time. You kind of take them for granted. You obviously don't write them out. You just work them out.
Yeah.
We use them quite often here. But my brother had trouble at school when he was like 13, 14, started acting out. And it was like, okay, off you go. And he went down to the local technical college, and 2 hours a week on a Thursday or something, he did bricklaying.
I wish I'd done bricklaying.
And it switched his head.
I wish I was a bricklayer.
He was like a completely different kid after that, because he enjoyed that, and he got something out of it, and they made a fuss of him because he built a wall, which I used to take the mick out of him, because anyone can do that. But it changed him, and it settled his head down at school, which made a massive difference to his outcome.
I'm in my 50s. I'm a university professor. I have a PhD, and when you say you're looking back, to this day, I'm looking back, and I remember in high school when I was going to one of my teachers, and I had an interview at a community college to go and do international advertising. And I came back and I said to him, I got into Seneca. I got into the international advertising program. And he said, well, why don't you just give a shot at the university, though? And so I did, and I got in, and I did the arts program, and then, go on and on, did Poli Sci, and then, did a PhD in communication. But to this day, I look back at this and go, I'm thinking I made the wrong, don't get me wrong, I'm happy, and I've done great things. But to this day, I'm looking back going, I think I made the wrong decision.
Well, I don't think you made the wrong decision, because you sat here in this fantastic facility, recording this fantastic podcast. But maybe it's okay. But I really, in my heart of hearts, if that makes any sense, I really feel like I could have excelled in a more technical capacity. So and every time someone says, okay, if you could go back and you could do it again, what would you do? Plumbing. Yeah.
And I know that it can be really gross and that, but there's we got a lot of issues with homes and things, and that's a job that there's always a job.
That was literally the one at school when I was at school at that careers conversation age at like 14. It was like, you want to be a plumber? There's no plumbers. I think one of the problems that didn't help is we just had a plumber out who charged my dad 80 quid for smacking a boiler.
Yeah,
that's all right, it's fixed. He just went upstairs and smacked it, and it was all right. And it's like, that's 80 quid. Are you joking?
Yeah, no.
But what can you do? That's just how it is. But that was always one that we were always told, be a plumber. But it's good to have a trade.
Yeah,
but
you're saying that you're in the trade. You're a mechanic. Actually, it's funny because we're sitting in the PowerWorks podcast recording closet, and the whole thing just started shaking, and I thought, we're having an earthquake.
It's all right.
But no, it's
just that Bentley.
Glenn's looking out, and that is one loud Bentley. But the Bentley started, and it's shaking the building.
Could have been worse. Yesterday it was smoking as well.
Oh, gee.
Look like we're in Studio 54.
It's my kind of car.
Yeah, it's not smoking anymore.
It's got warning lights coming on.
No,
mine's like a disco in my car right now.
That's all right.
The wife said, "Should we worry?" I said, "Hey, I listen to the podcast. They're not red and they're not blinking. We're good." My son, when I told him that, he goes, "Dad, I think you're taking the podcasting advice way too literal." I said, "Glenn said."
This is not what I need. This is not what I need.
Yeah, I got to get my car in, by the way.
Well, bring it in.
So, it's no. It's terrible.
It won't make it.
It's parked out front right now. No, it's making it. It's good. But it's like when you go to the doctor, and so we do the show with Dr. Jenna, but I used to do a show with Dr. Petherbridge, and he would always say that being a doctor is like being a mechanic in one way, but people they come in to see you and they've got an illness, and then it's always them at the door. And, oh, by the way, what about this, that, and the other thing? And so I'm just saving. And, when you go to the doctor, you don't want to go for one thing. Okay, I got a rash, I got a sore elbow, and my throat's sore. And, oh, yeah, you know what? I've also got this stomach thing. You go with like 5 or 6 because you want to maximize.
Exactly.
So I'm just saving up all the warning lights.
That's all right.
Just come at one time.
That's fine.
Because I figure if I come for one, then next week it'll be another one, and then another one. So let's let them all go off and we'll bring it and have a good look.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
I'm gonna make the PowerWorks Insta feed.
Walk into the reception, and then it's like an episode of Columbo when you're trying to walk out. Just keep coming back through the door. Oh, then just one more thing.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move on to the Bentley. What's going on with the Bentley in here?
Right. So we've kind of inherited this car sort of incomplete from somewhere else that was supposed to have completed it.
Oh, how often does that happen?
A lot.
So that's this is that thing that I constantly say to people, and we've heard it over and over again, is you can go and get your vehicle done cheaply. There are many places to get a vehicle fixed cheaply, and I get it because I don't want to spend money like anyone else, but I always end up spending the cash. And if you go for the cheap route, 9 times out of 10, you're going to go and spend more money to get someone else to fix it because it is not going to work.
I'm not going to name any names here.
We don't name names.
But I can't name the establishment because I don't know what it was, but we have a customer, and it's a good customer, and he's a really, really good guy. And he has an Audi Q3, so obviously right in our...
Okay.
That's exactly what we work on. That is our bread and butter, Q3. 2-litre turbocharged engine, so the most common engine in this region, really. And bread and butter for us. Now, it drove, lost oil pressure, engine failed.
Did the person stop driving it when it lost oil pressure, or did they keep going?
No, they kept going. Engine failed. Anyway.
So just a reminder to everyone, once again, oil pressure.
That was
light
a flashing red light.
Yeah,
as well.
if the lights are flashing, especially oil, pull over immediately.
And on that car, it says stop engine.
Yeah. Pull over, turn off the engine immediately.
Yeah. I mean,
come on, people.
Yeah.
Like common sense has to kick in. You cannot make it. It's not a joke. It's going to cost you a fortune if you don't do this.
I've come to the realization that most cars are more intelligent than the drivers now. That's me included. That's me included. I'm less intelligent than the car that I drive, and it's a van. But the engine failed. Long story short, needs an engine. So we found a second-hand engine, which is a much more cost-effective in terms of time.
Where'd you find this?
Repair in a second-hand engine yard in Sharjah.
Okay.
Found the engine, gave a price.
Yeah.
And the price was X.
Yeah.
So gave that to the customer, as I say, good customer, good friend, reliable, regular business from this guy, and he comes in, no problem. Comes back to me and he's quite open and honest and says, look, the car's not worth much more than what the repair's going to be.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a look around. Excellent, no problem.
Yeah.
A few days later, found one.
Okay.
In a garage in Sharjah, they'll fit it for half. What have you said? Can you do any better on your price? No, I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
Because
you're already at the margin.
We deal with who we deal with on second-hand engines. We cannot take a risk. Okay, can you get everything ready? I'll take the car there. I said, that's fine. I'll bring it back to you to make sure that... So this is the first... I'll bring it back to you to make sure they've done the job right. Yeah, of course, no problem. No hard feelings, not a problem. We'll see you for service, we know. But you've got to save... We're talking a big amount of money.
Yeah.
It's half the price, right? 3 months later.
3 months, that's a good time.
After various... problems in between of now they're saying my turbo's failed and they've done this and that and this and that.
And he kept taking it back to the same...
The car is still not out. It's not been going back. It's not out. 3 months later.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Comes to us, not starting. And I'm just going to pull it out. Can you just sort it? Comes to us, battery's dead. And I mean, shorted out dead because it's been left there. The turbo, as I said, they've already had a problem with. So we get the battery on it, get it to start, oil light on. Oil pump not working, no oil pressure.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the turbo had failed, because it had been running with no oil pressure.
Nice.
The steering rack had been butchered where they'd taken the engine out and smashed the end off it. And 2 of the engine mountings were not bolted in because the threads had been pulled out and they just thought, forget it. And then 1 bolt that was sheared off, they glued the head onto where it should have gone.
Is this a legitimate garage?
I don't know. I don't know.
You don't know.
I don't know.
You don't want to know at this point.
Well, and the car's come back now, and we've had the car has now got to be scrapped.
So it's clearly
that money's already been paid. Man. That was half the amount we were going to pay, and we were going to charge more than what we were going to say, and it also still needs a new engine. And that's not that isn't a I'm just going to tell you this because it's a really memorable one. That's every couple of months we get one like that.
Yikes!
Not always an engine, maybe it's something else. But what are we supposed to do? Yeah. Like, as I say, good friend, good customer.
Yeah.
Totally understand and empathise. So what do you not just sound like a salesman saying, really don't go there and let us do it? You just sound like you're trying to, it's easy for me to say, I'm selling it and obviously making a profit.
Yeah. No, and I hear it. I hear you, but it's, this is the dilemma is you can save the money and everyone wants to save the money, but is it going to be done correctly? And this is another example of no, it's not, because they can do it at half the price, which means they have to be cutting corners.
Yeah.
Or they simply don't know what the job is, so it costs less because they don't know what they're doing. And boom, 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 all boxes got checked here. So what's the outcome now? It's
going to scrap it. He's going to put it through Copart auction.
Wow.
As a sold as seen for spares.
Wow. What a shame.
If it went and got weighed in as scrap, you'd probably get 3,000 dirhams for the car.
Wow, that's sad. That's sad.
I mean, it's got a gearbox on it, which is worth new 50k.
Yeah.
You know, second hand maybe 10k, but nobody's going to take the time out to do that.
That's sad. That makes me cry.
Yeah, and similar story with the Bentley. Had a foot, so that's the W12 twin turbo.
Okay.
Proper one, the VW engine.
Yeah.
Just got a couple of mad turbos bolted to the side of it, but every single job on that car pretty much is engine out.
Okay.
Except for spark plugs.
Nice.
Pretty much everything else and air filters. So, gets the engine rebuilt, goes for repaint. It's been painted a shade of purple that Porsche use. I forget the name of it.
Porsche purple.
Porsche purple, let's call it that. And it's had a full interior redone. On the way back from the body shop, having had the paint to us, and I can't remember why it was coming here originally because it's so freaking long ago.
Yeah,
it was coming here for something. Oh, windows, I think. That's right. Windows and doors. The doors and windows weren't working, so it came in. It was coming on the way here for that. On the way, the owner of the car was driving behind the painter who'd painted the car.
Oh no!
Said it was smoking.
Uh-huh.
The engine was smoking out of the exhaust. So we got it in. Oh, but I've just had the engine rebuilt. Can't with the engine. No, okay, yeah, I'm pretty sure. That's cool. It sounds and runs really smooth. It's a bit of smoke in it.
Yeah.
Worried about it being the turbos, and I'm worried about, some other things, oil separator from the PCV valve, all this sort of stuff, but we'll have to check it out. Anyway, we've had so many things back and forth, and then the customer bought some software to recode the control units to remove the air suspension because he put standard suspension on it, and et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, get it, yeah.
All these back and forths anyway. Smoking, and I mean smoking really bad. So, all right, we'll figure it out. So, the first thing we did was we wanted to see that maybe they'd not put the piston rings in right.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe they'd not bored it properly or honed it properly, and there was a lot of tolerance in there.
I like that word, by the way, honing. When you're honing, that's a good word.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I was talking about words I like this morning. Yeah. I like words that end in ASM, like sarcasm and chasm and spasm. Spasm's a particular favourite of mine.
All right.
Yeah. Also NGEs, flange.
Oh, nice.
Blancmange.
Yeah. We're going to get you on TikTok in a minute. All right.
But, so we're doing the cylinder leakage test and it's not leaking past the rings. So basically on the cylinder leakage test, you turn the engine by hand so that the cylinder that you're
they're going up very slowly.
Yeah, so you take the spark plug out and you put a tool in there which allows you to fill it with pressurized air.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So you close the cylinder to top dead center, which means it's at the top, all the valves are closed, and if it was running, that's the point when the fuel would ignite. Okay. The spark would go and the fuel would ignite. So it's full compression, basically. Nice. So we fill it then with pressure, and there's two gauges. One has the pressure going in, and one tells you how much is coming back out.
Kind of like an air conditioning tester.
Yeah, basically like manifold gauges, yeah. So we put 50 bar in, and we want to see that
50 bar, that's
good. We want to see that we're holding 50 bar.
Yeah.
And we can check it. Now, that's fine. It could be 2 bar. We want to see that we're holding the bigger the number, the better. And we usually go up to about 100 psi actually.
Wow!
So it's not mad numbers, but that's
still
considerable. So we go and see, and there's very little difference. Obviously, there's error on the gauges.
Yeah.
The hoses expand a little, so there's always a little bit less, and some will escape. But in the case of it being low, and it's not retaining the pressure, you can then listen out of the exhaust pipe.
Right.
And if it's leaking out the exhaust, it's the exhaust valve that's not holding compression. If it's leaking out of the intake, it's the intake valve.
You're Sherlock's homing the thing.
So you're doing exactly. No problem. All good. All 12 cylinders. Great. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Next step. It could be the valve seals. Right. Okay. So let's think about this. We'll cold start it. And what we did was we took the intake manifold off to make sure that we checked the last basic thing, which was the PCV valve. Now, PCV is positive crankcase ventilation. So what that means is when the oil is in the engine and being smashed and sloshed around by the crankshaft and the oil pump, it vaporizes a little to a certain extent.
I'm going to just pause you for a second because I just want to remind people one of the core things that we like to do in this podcast is help you to understand the jargon and terminology and how your engine works.
Yeah.
So that when you go to a garage and they say, "Oh, you got a problem with your PVC valve," PCV, as opposed to PVC piping.
Not PVC windows and doors.
Yeah. So that you see, because you mess things up, so you understand what they're talking about, and if your service manager, mechanic cannot explain to you how this stuff works,
walk away.
Run.
We should get stickers.
Yeah.
I listen to Powerworks podcast. Don't take the mic.
Okay.
In the back of people's cars.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically the vaporized oil creates a pressure in the engine. Now in the old days that would just be vented. That's why old cars stink.
Oh, okay.
They just stink of oil fumes, right?
Yeah.
My
grandfather's vehicles. He had, 1975 Ford EcoVan, 1965 Parisienne, and they all smelled.
Yeah, just the oil vapor that's coming out. There's air and oil, and it's all messed up.
But I loved that smell of the oil in the backyard. You walk into his backyard, and it was always that dirt and oil.
Yeah,
it's like Grandpa's place.
Yeah, that's it. And that's not been the case now for easily 20 years, probably actually longer than that we've been recirculating. Now, what happens to that is it's vented into the intake of the engine so that the engine can then burn those vapors.
All right.
But to stop it burning oil and to stop the engine using oil, both things are not desirable. There's a swirl chamber which forces the vaporized.
Where's the swirl chamber with the valve?
So you have the PCV valve which vents it.
Yeah.
And then there's an oil separator swirl chamber where it's basically, what's this guy want? Andrew, give me. No, I've got a podcast. So disco lights to
got
go
the
with
lights going. I love this place. we got stuff happening on your phone. We got the lights going on and off. We got the rumble of a Bentley. So
the oil is centrifugally thrown out, so it spins through a swirl, and that spinning motion throws the oil out, which can then drip back down into the bottom of the engine.
Okay, cool.
We're talking milliliters every few minutes. It's not a massive amount, but it's significant if you're burning it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what happens is two things: the valves can stick open because they get crud from the carbon in the oil, and also this oil separators is there's a diaphragm in it, a rubber diaphragm which can break. So then the oil it doesn't have to follow its desired path, and it can just blow straight through into the intake, and then again you're burning the oil. Now, I've seen this 5 times this week: PCV valves and oil separators that fail.
5 times
easily, every single day. Every day.
In your one garage, and you think of all of the agencies, and then you think of all of. So this is a common thing.
Yeah, every single car that has this sort of more modern PCV and separator setup, it's down to the fact that manufacturers keep their cost of ownership down by putting a too long service window.
Yeah,
and it's worse on turbocharged engines.
So great with the turbo, you get a smaller engine, you get that nice boost, and boom, but you got other things you got to think about.
The oil degrades a lot quicker. Yeah, that turbo's spinning 100,000 RPM, and the oil's getting so hot. I mean, the turbo is literally the exhaust.
Right.
It's 1,000 degrees. The oil is degrading fast.
If you're not changing your oil every at minimum 5,000 kilometers,
5 to 10 on a turbocharged engine.
5,000. I wouldn't. Not 5 to 10. It's not 6:30 to 7. Get here. It's 5,000 kilometers. Just go and get it changed.
Over maintenance in that case is not a problem.
I would absolutely be doing it. No, with what you're just saying right now, man. You know what? Yeah, 5,000 kilometers.
Well, we've ended up again to cut to the chase. This Bentley, the intake manifold was. I mean, the oil was running out.
Oh, no.
Running out of it because obviously the plenum of the intake manifold had just caught all this oil.
That's another nice word.
Liquid oil. Yeah, that's a nice one. Yeah. So we tip the manifold up and I send a video of the customer and it's, there you go.
There you go. This is it.
Simple fix, except it's a Bentley and it's an older one and it's not the most common thing. And they're expensive because it's a Bentley, so they don't keep them on the shelf, so it's 15 days order. So it's like another 2 weeks, this car's going to be sat lying around. So anyway, the customer took the front panel off because we had to take the whole front end of the car has to come off. We can do it without the engine out.
What year of Bentley? What model of Bentley?
This is a 2005 GT.
Okay, it's new. 2005, in my book, that's a new. I mean, I drove 2008, and I think that's new. So anyway, okay.
The parts, 15 days, so... It's a big job, but it's not 15 days worth. Yeah. So we took the front end off and we didn't have to drop the engine out. In this, it's one of the very few engine repairs you can do without doing that.
Imagine.
And while it was out, the customer got the front panel fascia redone in carbon fibre.
Okay, nice.
So
why not?
That was something he wanted to do, and well, it's coming off anyway, so I'll do it now. And the valves went in, but because of how the intake was full of oil, and then obviously... all of that oil, as we've lifted the intake off, has run into the cylinders. And
lovely.
The exhaust, because it's been burning, is full of oil.
Lovely.
When we started that thing up yesterday, just blue smoke.
That's why there's black smoke around all of your exhaust fans here.
It's everywhere.
It's black.
It's everywhere. So it's not bad now. We got it hot, and the exhaust has burnt most of it out. And you know, there's no. You can buy equipment that will, quote unquote, clean an exhaust. I'd never use one. I would never ever do that. I think you're going to do more damage to your exhaust than good. But the real only way to do it is to get it hot and let it burn it off.
Yeah.
You know, and then it'll stop smoking. And we've got to that point now, and it's running like it always has been running okay.
Yeah.
But it's no more a smoke machine.
Ah, okay. So the Bentley will live.
Yes.
But the other vehicle is a goner.
The other one is a goner.
What was the other one?
The Q3.
The Q3.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that the engine's been out and the fact that the engine's had a full rebuild and these PCV valves weren't changed is frightening.
Yeah.
There's no... It's such a common failing. You know, it's like... we have... So it's the... There's always the situation when we have the conversation with customers every day. It's like, do I really need all this? And sometimes I have to say, look, you don't need this, but it's best practice.
Yeah.
You know, if you've had an engine overheat because of a leak and it has overheated, well, best practice would say change the thermostat valve.
Right.
Because that thermostat valve has gone to a point of where it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So what happens if it stays stuck open or worse, stays stuck closed? We fix your leak, we put everything back together again, you take the car away and you sat in traffic after 20 minutes and it overheats again. Yeah. You ain't going to be happy with me.
Yeah, it's going to be...
But regardless of how you think about me, whether you come to me back again or not, you've still got to go somewhere to get it fixed again. So the inconvenience and the extra cost is there on you as well. So it's better to do it now. And likewise, sometimes we'll do a set of suspension bushers on a car which requires dismantling a certain amount of parts, which some of them might not need to be replaced, but it makes sense to replace them because they're so inexpensive and less than the labour will be to do it the next time.
Yeah.
So it's always a matter of best practice, and I think in the case of the Bentley, the PCV valve should have been changed.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense not to. You've got the engine out, change everything.
Yeah.
You know, that is not... It didn't pay me. I don't know what he spent, but that is a...
This is a Q3.
No, the Bentley.
Oh, Bentley, okay.
That is a 50,000 60,000 dirham job, surely, to rebuild an engine.
Oh, man.
So $3,000 more on valves and separators.
Why not? At that point, just do it right. Do the whole job.
Yeah.
You posted up on Instagram. If you're not following the PowerWorks folks on the socials, please do, because it's fun. It's informative, and it gives you a lot of education about parts in your vehicle and what to be looking at and what they look like when they've failed, what they look like when they're replaced. But you posted up the odometer of a Camry. 500,000 plus kilometers.
A Prado.
Oh, it was a Prado? I thought it was a Camry.
No, a Prado.
Okay. A Prado. 500,000 plus. Oh, that's right. Toyota. Yeah. 500,000 plus kilometers. I saw that and I went, that's every reason to buy a Toyota Prado right there.
Yeah, the guy that owns it, Craig, he's been coming to us since we opened as a referral from one of our friends. And every time he comes in, he's like, shall I get rid of it now? It's like the biggest problem isn't the amount of times that you have issues with it, because the car's got a little bit of, how do you want to term it? It's got some equity with him now where it can mess up, and he kind of, it's all right. It's just the old Prado. It's just an old car. Of course, it's going to do that. So he kind of lets it get away with messing up a bit too much. But it's just finding, even with that, even though it's a Toyota, finding parts for it now. You know.
Yeah.
It's a 99, I think it is.
Yeah, for sure. It's amazing, isn't it? Because I moved here in 2000. I don't think that's very long ago. But then you talk to people and they say, you've been here 22 years. That's a long time, dude.
Yeah.
And in my mind, it doesn't feel like a long time. It just feels like 22 years, which it's just
22 years for a car is a long time here.
I'm starting to notice with both of mine that are 2008s, and I'm noticing just things. I mean, they're not worn out. They don't need, but it's just things.
Yeah. That it's a long time for a car in this climate.
Yeah.
Long time for anything in this climate, to be fair.
Yeah.
But it's 500,000 kilometers and still going. It was in for a service. It wasn't even in for a fault this time. I mean,
just in for.
We fixed the door locks on it. We put a new radio in it because there was some issues. Done a few wiring repairs, which were nothing more than just age.
Yeah.
And
so that's what's going on with my red Jeep. I'm convinced I've got some wiring issues, and I looked in the front, just looking as I was washing it the other day because sap ran down from a tree, and I was just like, can't. Just drives me nuts looking at the hood of the car. Rest of the car's dirty. I just clean the front hood that I see. So it's and as I'm washing the front, I'm looking, and there's a casing where there's a bundle of wires running by the front. They're going by the radiator in, and I noticed there's no longer a casing on it. And I'm going, oh, well, yeah, I got to put some tape or something on that because this is not good.
Let's get that looked at.
But it's the wiring's not the problem. It's just that the cover on it, and then as we're talking about heat, and we're talking about it's in the front of the car, it's getting blasted with bugs and sand. Yeah, that's where we're good. And then I got a few warning lights coming on. Well, that's why.
Yeah,
it's like this is not rocket science.
Yeah, we've had situations where you're chasing a fault. And then you eventually go, okay, let's just do this. Let's dive into the wiring, and you pull the carpet back, and there's like clearly been rats in there making a nest, and it happens all the time.
Yeah,
there's really not that much you can do. We had a Porsche Cayenne in a few weeks ago. In fact, the same customer's got his CLS 550 in at the minute. We had a Porsche Cayenne in a few weeks ago, and he'd had his car was in another garage. It had a misfire, and they told him it needs all 8 spark plugs and all 8 ignition coils. Okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
He said, basically, I don't trust them. Can you just fit them? Okay, we'll fit them. And we fit them. Still same misfire and still on the same 2 cylinders. Now, in this case, we could have. We always change all of them. We always change them all because if one's failed, you don't want.
You can't just change 2. You got to.
Well, look, there's 8 on the engine. Right? If 2 have failed, the others are likely to fail very soon.
They're all the same age.
But there's two issues here. One is the time and inconvenience to the customer of having to come back.
Yeah.
If it comes on again, but as an individual and as a business, the only thing the customer will feel is a misfire and the warning light.
Right.
They don't know that it's a different fault and it's not the same fault and we didn't cure it.
Yeah.
We've cured the issue, but now one of the others has failed.
Yeah.
But to the customer, quite rightly, I've got the same fault with the same light.
What have you guys done? You didn't fix the job. Yeah.
So we have to get it done fixed properly the first time. So we do that. It's still the same. Okay. So let's figure this out. And then we check in on the coil, and one of the wires which is supposed to have the signal for ignition on it was a permanent power.
Okay.
And it shouldn't have been. It shouldn't have been a permanent 12 volts. So tracing the wires all the way back from that ignition coil all the way back to the control unit. When we took the plug off the control unit, somebody had been in the control unit. And these plugs on the control unit, there's nothing in here that small.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
They are minuscule.
Yeah.
Like you cannot. Yeah. So people back probe, and what that means is where the connector is, where the metal part of the actual wiring connector is, people push like a paper clip in or something, and then just trying to check the electrical, either the current, the voltage, or the not the current, but the voltage or the resistance. And what they've done is they've done that with something that was way too big for the hole. 'Cause everything's too big for that hole.
Yeah. Oh no.
And they'd spread it.
Oh no.
So they'd spread the pin, but they'd pushed it through the plastic onto the pin next to it.
Yeah. There you go.
So then you've got a short to live.
Yeah.
Which is causing the coil not to work, and that was the problem.
Yeah.
I was just like, what? Who's done that?
Yeah.
And then not thought.
You mean you've got to have your blacklist in the office, just who fixed this thing last, just with your own little reminder of not to be like these guys.
Yeah.
Like, you know what, there's lots of times when it says don't be like these guys.
Sometimes
I want that list. I just wanted to remind me when I'm driving by.
Sometimes you do a job on a car, and having finished that job, something else has gone wrong.
Right. It's always
so. The first thought is, right, I've caused this. Where do I? What did I do?
Yeah.
And most of the time, with 10 or 15 minutes just sat working it out in your head, you'll know, oh, that's what I've done.
No.
I mean, whoever it was that backpinned that control unit plug and then put it back together, it must have been misfiring straight away.
Yeah.
So, what?
No, it's the mechanic who doesn't want the person who's doing the QC, the quality control. They've done it really quickly. Oh yeah, it's all fine. Get this thing out of here. I don't want people to catch on. And then when it's gone, I didn't do it.
Yeah, I just don't know how people get away with it.
I think it's in like, I don't want to cast aspersion on the region here, but there's a lot of that happens across trades where I didn't do it. No, it's done with us. It wasn't us. You must have done this. Is that, are you joking? It's like, no.
Yeah. We obviously always try to own a mistake.
Yeah.
When you make them, because we invariably do every day. Something will go wrong that we didn't want to happen, but yeah. We're just sort of giving people bad news, and I hate it. Hate saying it's because of who worked on it before, because it's such a cop-out thing to say.
But sometimes it is.
Yeah, sometimes it is, and you do have to just be honest. Yeah. That's the most important, is the being honest part.
Yeah. We started off this podcast talking about, well, inevitably, and along the way, we were talking about school and vehicles and sciences, STEM, and getting people back in. Did you catch the article? And I missed seeing this, but it looks like it happened over at Skydive Dubai. Given the pictures, they were testing a flying electric car. No one in the cabin, but they ran the thing up autonomously.
It was yesterday, wasn't it?
And I was giving that a good read because I thought it was interesting. But the key piece that jumped out at me, manufactured in China, a Chinese manufactured vehicles. We get tons of those here. They're testing out a flying vehicle. No one in the cockpit, so it was going autonomous. But they still put this thing up, and apparently it worked.
Yeah, I'm just trying to look through for it, because I did see it on my Flipboard feed for the UAE yesterday. I saw that.
Sleek looking too. It's black. I was looking at this thing going, oh, this is a nice.
There we go. The Xpeng X2.
Yeah. It's pretty sweet looking. It's essentially a drone with giant engines for them on each corner, and it looks like something out of Blade Runner.
Yeah, I don't know what I think about flying cars. Bad enough when they're on the road.
I think it opens up a whole other issue of the routes they're going to be taking, the corridors they're going to be in, the landing. you've got blades going, so people getting in, people getting out, the malfunctioning of them. You lose one of the engines, it's now got to compensate. Of course it can land and it can do it, but I don't know. I mean, I in my mind, I mean, it really seems simple, right? Because you're just flying, but it's like the metro. You've got a corridor that it goes. You've got roads where things go. You can't just be flying everywhere. And so this suddenly opens up a whole new avenue of regulation, a whole new set of questions about safety. And it's just like all of our transport, cars, buses, metros, trains, boats, they all have safety mechanisms built in redundancies. This opens up a whole new question of uncharted territory. So it's
I mean, you would think in terms of autonomous driving, obviously the biggest problem is that everyone would have to be autonomous at the same time, or it won't work.
Exactly.
But with the flying car, it's new.
Yeah.
So it could always be autonomous from day one. And then that's okay, because then you geofence a route, and you can have this and that. And if it goes outside of the route, then what? Does it just
bounces
drop
it back
out the
in.
sky?
It just bounces it back in. It can't go out of the route.
Yeah. So,
but
that might work.
So the place where I thought this could really be a sweet option is if it flew coastline, or if it flew Sheikh Zayed, right? Or so it doesn't fly in the city, but you can get it outside. And now suddenly I need to go to Abu Dhabi. I hop on this thing. It's doing 130 kilometers an hour. It's going to take me to Yas.
Yeah.
No traffic. It flies straight line. So, or it goes on the coast. And, okay, now you got all the palaces that you got to dodge, but still, this could be a really cool way to get from point A to point B. Or I got to go to Al Ain. This is great. I mean, as much as I love driving to Al Ain, if I didn't have to drive to Al Ain, I wouldn't be unhappy. If I could just get to Al Ain, that'd be great. So this could be interesting.
Yeah, I think if it's a dedicated corridor, it will probably work, and people will definitely do it.
But what caught my attention, like all the Chinese vehicles we're seeing here, is who's testing this here? It's coming from China.
Yeah,
I'm just thinking, these guys are making. They're really jumping very quickly in technology and vehicles and transportation, making a lot of moves very, very fast. And sometimes I think some of our more traditional manufacturers, our legacy manufacturers, underestimate China.
Yeah, that's what happened. They underestimated them, and then they were already out of the blocks and at full stride before people realised. And look, there's all these things about people saying that they devalue their own currency to make it that you can't compete with cost. Look,
that's business. I hate to say it. That's the world of business, folks.
What are you going to do? Because I'm not being funny, like you said, the legacy manufacturers in the US, Ford, GM, Chrysler, they've had it their way for so long. Yeah. Same with the European, the big boys in Europe. You've got to accept now that there's new people around and
different ways of thinking about things, different valuations.
I can't see. Well, it's not really a car, is it? They call it a car because it's personal transport and it's smaller than a helicopter. I mean, it doesn't.
I'm thinking it's like a taxi to me. But this is the challenge when we start thinking, okay, China and U.S. or France or wherever is making these things. We're looking so superficially. Look at the way, even take Japan. Japan's a great example. Look at what we strive for in the West. We want to own a home. We want big square footage. Look at people in Japan. They might want to own a home, but the home's devalued to zero after about 50 years. They're worth nothing, which is unlike what we do with equity in our homes. But people tend to live in much smaller accommodation. And if you start heading to China, everyone's talking about small homes and tiny homes. That's China. You start heading to Asia. I mean, I go to Bali. I'm in a village. They're living in tiny homes.
Yeah.
Whereas we're aspiring for these giant homes and all this stuff. They're already living in that. Well, suddenly they've got a whole different equation, in life.
The idea of the whole. There was a great program in the UK. Used to be on I think like a Friday or something in the evening, called Tomorrow's World. Real good. It was like an institution for so long. and it just had like
this program, by the way,
yeah,
institution.
well, institutionalized. The program would be like talking to you about the future and what was to come, and I can sort of remember the whole internet thing. Being really young, and then we had an information service on the TV called CFAX and Teletext, which was basically, I don't know how it worked. I mean, that to me is less easy to understand than how the internet works, but that was kind of the first type of internet 24-hour news thing.
Yeah.
And all these things on Tomorrow's World, and then you'd have like the mobile phone stuff, and you're going to have internet in your pocket, and all these things that have actually ended up happening. And, things move now at such a fast rate that program became redundant.
Yeah.
Because what you can achieve today, and you think, oh, I wonder what we could do tomorrow. I wonder what we could do in 30 years. 2 years later, you can do it.
Yeah.
And somebody's already developing it, and people are already making it. You go to the whole thing of Tomorrow's World was technology to make people's lives easier, so we had more leisure time.
Yeah.
But if anything, now, and this is where the small house thing comes in, we have less leisure time. People work longer than they ever have.
Yeah.
With all the technological advances that you've got.
Well, this is why people don't want to go back to the office, because they realize we're working more and more and more. I want to now spend a little bit of my leisure time in my house. I don't want to commute 2 hours each way. Yeah. And people are going, I want it back.
But because you're out of your house all the time, you don't need a massive house.
No.
Like you just don't need a big house because you're never in it.
Yeah. Then when you are in it, you got to do all the repairs because the thing's just breaking down.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. There we go. Nice.
But no, I mean the whole idea of China and the moves they're making. All of the big European manufacturers are involved with one of the Chinese manufacturers.
They have to be. And look, how many of the products in a vehicle, because of decentralized parts supply, are coming from China?
Yeah.
It's like, it's not like they're, yes, a whole bunch of products are being designed around the world, but at the end of the day, there's serious design work, engineering work happening in China. They have a space station. They have a space program autonomous of the rest of the world. It's not like they just borrowed everything and stole it. They have their own systems that they're working on.
Well, listen, the
collaboration.
Man hasn't been to the moon for 40, 50 years. 50 years now, isn't it?
Something like that. I don't
know. What's going on?
Yeah. Why haven't we gone back to the moon?
I mean, I know it's maybe a little bit of a pointless exercise, and we've done that, but what advancements has there been?
Where's China got a setup right now? The dark side of the moon, because no one goes there.
Yeah.
And they've figured out how to do it. So they've put something on the dark side of the moon. They've got a repeater satellite that
And now we can't see what they're doing.
We don't know what they're doing over there.
Who knows? Be like sharks.
They're already on the moon
and stuff.
They're inhabiting the moon.
Yeah. Well.
And the backside of the moon is it's craziness is going on over there.
We don't know what's going on over there. There's all sorts going on. We don't know what they're doing now. They're in the only place in the universe we can't see them ever. Yeah. So listen, it's all fair game to me as long as people aren't getting hurt for it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, wake up and catch up. VW and the rest of the guys have started to do it, catching up with Tesla. But it comes to a point of embarrassment when Western civilized countries that claim to be leaders in the world in economy and politics and all that stuff can't even make their own cars and can't even get the components made for their own cars in their own country,
and don't have the people in country to do this.
Yeah,
it's shameful. It's like the writing's on the wall, folks. If you're going to school now, start thinking STEM. Start thinking trades.
Make engineering.
Yeah. Just start doing
an acceptable career.
Yeah.
Like, stop telling people they need to be a doctor.
Yeah.
Doctors were very much needed, but not everybody is capable of being a doctor because you don't have the right level of agreeableness or the right kind of temperament.
Let's get a bunch of lawnmower engines into school and get people playing around with lawnmowers and whippersnapper engines and learning how these things work. And okay, what else can I run with this?
Yeah.
Let's make motorized skateboards.
Listen, teaching me to be a mechanic when I was 15, 16, my granddad showing me around the cars that he had in his motorbikes, going and being an apprentice for VW at that age, in the early 2000s, was not that difficult.
Yeah.
Teaching the kid now to be
they don't want to get their hands dirty, dude.
A mechanic on an EV.
Yeah.
I couldn't teach him.
No. I remember back in my electronics class, Ajax High School, and I remember the fun in that electronics class because they'd set it up right. We had like workbenches with independent power supplies on them, and it was always trying to work on something and saying, okay, can we blow all these power supplies? Can we blow them all? Because it obviously had redundancy, so if it blew, it would just need to be reset. But it was quite a nice ordeal to see that sparks coming when you blew something, and that was all we were trying to do. But in the process of learning how far you could go you knew how far you could go, and you started learning about circuits and electronics, and this is years ago, but it's all stuck with me now, and it's kind of cool.
Yeah, look, I like to say, if somebody came here and said, look, I won't mind being an apprentice mechanic, I'd love that, because no problem. But
I might be knocking on your door
if they want to teach. if they want teaching about EVs, well, I ain't got enough experience to do that, and I ain't qualified on doing that, and I don't know where to send you to do that.
Yeah, it's coming.
There is no practical application of knowledge at the moment in these kind of things.
UAE, time to get on the EV. It's time. Let's start doing it, and let's become the world leaders. Bring everyone here to learn EV mechanics.
Yeah,
come to the Middle East. Come in the winter. You do a 9 month.
We've got a couple of little boutique kind, but we haven't got any vehicle manufacturing plants here.
No, we need. I don't understand why.
If we're going to start doing it here, we might as well start doing it on EVs, because we've got to build new anyway.
Let's do it. We're kicking it out of Sharjah, so let's start it. They're doing them in the Netherlands, putting it together. Let's put them together here.
Yeah,
there we go. On that note, this has been a blast. Been a lot of fun. Glenn Power, PowerWorks Garage. It is the PowerWorks podcast. Thank you very much. We'll do it all again real soon. Thank you for listening. However you are doing that, leave a comment, share the links, and we will talk to you again really soon. James out.